How many were here for the Yaesu Fusion Wires X presentation? Okay, so that was fantastic, right? John was here from the mothership, and he gave us a great presentation. But we also realized that there was hands-on that we need to cover, right? Like, how do you take your radio in this room, maybe, and connect our repeater to KCY? Okay, how do you physically do that? How do you take the handheld radio, connect our repeater right behind us here to KCY or something else? How do you do that? And we're going to do a hands-on type training so that everybody that has a Wires X radio, we're going to go through how to make connections, not just, we talked about how it works and that kind of thing, but we're now going to make sure you know how to use your radio. So that's coming up here. Scott and I are working with Tom tonight. Next schedule for this room over the next month or so, but over the next 2 months, we're going to be doing that presentation. It'll be a hands-on. You'll sign up for it, and if you have interest in Fusion or Wires X, you want to come to that. But again, it's going to be hands-on with your radio and instructors that can help you with that. We're also going to do hands-on training with your radio for D-Star. Okay, so Dan's presentation was excellent. It covered everything, not just the 80,000 foot view, but it got into the basics of how to do things. But you were not, while he was doing his presentation, I don't think, you were not programming your radio, right? And that's where sometimes people run into problems. So we're going to have an additional training class. You'll need to sign up for it, and you'll bring your D-Star radio, and we're going to show you how to connect to reflectors using your radio, using the DR mode, and other features of your ICOM or Kenwood radios that are D-Star compatible. Okay, so that's coming up in the next month and a half. Then our all-star guru is down in, where's he at, Scott?
St. Croix.
St. Croix. When he gets back from his little diving adventure, this lasted 3 months, when he gets back from that, Tom Bach is going to do a hands-on presentation on All-Star. So it'll be a two parts to this presentation. The first one is going to be, what is All-Star? How can you use it to enhance your amateur radio world? Okay. And then the second part is going to be how you use an All-Star analog radio to connect our analog repeater system to another All-Star node. So if those things don't mean anything to you, what is a node, what is All-Star, what is an analog repeater? We'll cover all of that. Tom will cover all of that during this presentation. Again, it's going to be a little more of a signed up for type thing. If no one's interested in All-Star, you don't need to come to that unless you just want to. Okay, so these are more focused training, more intimate, focused training classes coming up in April and May. Okay, how many people are interested in that? All right, very good. All right, now we're not going to do that DMR because tonight, Jim, hey, this is Jim on your side, Jim. Jeff. Jim is going to cover that piece tonight, which is going to be more about how do you program your DMR radio. So we went through some of the basics last week, right? We talked about time slots, and we talked about a few other things. Yeah, talk groups and things of that nature. We talked about programming your radio with CPS or some type of software. And so tonight we're going to be covering that. So before I turn it over to Jim, let me ask El Presidente for live. It's DJ. He would like to make an announcement. And if not, we'll turn it over to Jim.
Y'all, I'm here just to hear me. So I'm going to make this short and sweet. First, thank you for being here. Appreciate you coming out. Certainly just a great part of the capstone of series on digital that we've done here over the last 3 months. I know Jim has an awesome presentation lined up. I think many of you had some anytone radios, so should be some good insight, particularly if you're a anytone user. However, the same principles to be applied if you have different DMR radios. I know Jim will definitely be able to go over all of that. So first and foremost, thank you for being here, particularly to our first timers. Glad you found a home, and welcome. We're glad that you're here. And if there's anything that we can do to help you on your ham radio journey, please let us know. Okay, so without further ado, what is this? A brand new yay thing, right? That you were the flashlight. You had the element. Did you? Okay, very good. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jim. Jim, I'm going to try the controls here. So I'm going to get a share screen going. So your presentation can be shared on the YouTube if you're good. All right, we'll turn it over to Jim.
Well, good evening, everybody. Everybody in here interested in DMR? Have DMR? Thinking about DMR? Yeah. As Paul talked about last session, DMR is in 3 different tiers. Tier 1 is Apple Watt, is digital, is L46 megahertz. Don't use it in the US, it's used in Europe only. Tier 2, what amateurs have elected to use. It's 2 time slots or a repeater. It could be late repeaters. There's major late repeaters we're going to talk about. Some of the places besides amateurs that's using them. A lot of schools are using DMR. Hospitals. But it's a commercial standard. It's not an amateur standard like Yaesu or DSOS. It's like P25 and all of the police and fire and everything are using. And then the third one is tier 3, which is trumped DMR. And so far, I haven't seen any amateurs using trumped DMR. Or is it using it? Core Electric using it. Vail, Eastone, Beaver Freight, they're using it. It's all trunklinks. Haven't seen it here. So here we got 2 time slots. And this is going to be basic, and the concept is the same no matter what your radio is, whether it's Ulsan or a 2YT or Motorola or an Anytone or whatever you can find. We're going to go over some basic concepts. Talk about now you got radio, now what? Building code ones, some of the bells and whistles. If you've got questions, please ask. Code plug is nothing more than the program in the radio. Just like you put a program in a Yaesu radio, or a Star radio, or a Kenwood radio. This is program for DMR. CPS is the software that's used to program. There's various software. Everyone is different for every different DMR radio. The code plugs typically are not interchangeable. So if I give you a third party like RT Systems, the DMR radios, unlike some of the others, is not supported by Chirp. This is so far what RT Systems has. The DM32 QB is being built, but it's not built yet. And all these are DMR software from RT Systems. Zones, best thing about DMR radios are zones. It's a file cabinet. It organizes your channels into groups. We can have a PRA group and have however many channels deal with PRA during that group, or a RL group, or a SkyHub group, or a RNHAM group. So you don't have to go through 4,000 channels, find the one you want. which used in the East Arabia. Channels, just like everything else, where you set up your talk groups, public codes, your frequency. It's like an analog. You've got frequencies and offsets. With analog, you've got PL tone. With DMR, you've got color code. It's just enough. Scan groups. If you like scanning, you can set up scan groups. I suggest you do it as you're building the code plug. Otherwise, if you built 4,000 channels, you have to go back and build a scan. Whereas you build a scan group based on whatever your criteria is, club, your repeater, whatever. Scanning is generally analog only. Because digital has better ways to do it. Contacts. Everybody in here has a DMR ID. That's the contacts. It loads in, so when you call on the radio, you see whoever's name and call sign it is. Also, as part of the contacts, is private call. That's where I would set it up and call Paul, and no one else would be private call. Most radio systems don't allow group calls to what the talk groups are, where everybody can get it up. Also, is from the business commercial world. It's been used in DMR. The concept behind it in the spec is that it's one-way communications. I have all call, and when I key the mic, everybody on that frequency hears what I'm saying. So it's got a fire, it's evacuating, and the food trucks are here, the beer truck is here, that's work. It's not designed by spec to be a simplex channel. But we seem to use it as a simplex channel, at least some. Receive group list, by spec. Receive group list is the talk group you want to receive. Some radios, whatever your talk group for transmitting it, what you receive on. Some radios, it's not. So if you build a code plug, you can receive. You put something in receive group list. Any tone in Motorola, claim you don't need to because it will follow the talk group. But the Motorola folks have told me we recommend you put it in because you know how electronic talk. It's another method of listening to multiple talk groups. You set up a talk group for PRA that's maybe talking to the USA talk group. So you put that in your receive group list. You can put more receive groups in that list. And every time something comes in on those receive groups, you'll hear it. Not as good as rescues. Time slots, 2 disabled time slots on the single 12.5 kilohertz frequency. They are 30 millisecond slices. So time slot 1 gets 30, time slot 2 gets 30. You go conversation. Best practice. It's been published but not followed. It's using time slot 1 for dynamic talk groups, and time slot 2 for local talk groups. That hasn't been followed. Hasn't been followed in Colorado, it hasn't been followed anywhere else. This repeater, PRA repeater follows that hearing, but others do not. So don't assume that. Check repeater book. Check the websites to see what it's actually configured at. Talk groups are just like rooms. Familiar with fusion rooms, E-star rooms. Talk groups are just like rooms. We have a room for PRA. Anybody know what it is? 310844. There's a room for severe weather in Colorado. Anybody know what that is?
So we
Right. Everybody hear that? 31083. It's usually pretty busy. There are multiple DMR systems. Just because a Grandmeister, which is what PRA is connected to, has a talk group of 3108 for Colorado. TGIS may have that same group number and going somewhere else, or DMR Plus. So check the system you're on. Majority of the repeaters in Colorado are on Grandmeister, except for the ones that are not. And there's a pretty good chunk that are not. Probably 35 or 40 are not. But there are 3 that are on Grandmeister, EGIF, and DMR Plus. And all you do is change the talk group number to use the different systems, just like you do in odds. Talk groups. As of the first part of the month, TGIF has almost 3,200 talk groups. Grandmeister, 1744. DMR Mark, which is the Motorola Amateur Radio Club, S800. DMR Plus 276, and 3DMR 882. So, you have a lot of talk groups you can play. Grandmeister is the big one for connected repeaters. TGIF is on 3, Van Allen in Colorado. DMR Plus is on those same 3. DMR Mark, I think is on some up north. Northern Colorado Radio Club, I believe, has some DMR Mark. Code plug. This is the workflow. You start, you populate it with DMR ID, your name, your call sign, which are not broadcasts. The only thing in DMR that's broadcast is your DMR ID. Next, you create talk groups. You need talk groups before you can create channels. Sitting down and figuring out the talk groups. You see how many there are. Here's a challenge. Then you can create scan groups based on what you built for your talk groups. You don't have to. It's nice to create the lists so that you can assign the channels as you build. But you don't have to. Create the receiver list. I suggest if you're building code plug for any DMR radio, you build a receiver list. You don't sit there all day trying to figure out why it gets each. Then you create channels, create zones, which is your file cabinet for organizing the channels. Any tone radios, 4,000 channels. So, EM clicks, 4,000 channel, but on that. Populate the scan list with what you built. Create the call list, which are the contacts. For me, Paul, Scott, Dan, Weber. And do your customization. This is what separates the radios. And all of this stuff you have to do no matter what the radio is. Whether it's TYT, Wolfang, Motorola, Anytone. You have to do that stuff in specific order, which makes the channels easier to define. And then say the code blood and test. Make sure it works. Just like everything else we do. Save it, test it. When it doesn't work, fix it. When you call up an Anytone CPS screen, this is what will look like initially. This is the folder tree on this side, shows channel, zones, scan list, rolling channels and zones. That's down if you want to listen to the other radio. Auto repeater offset. Device optional settings. That's where you make your radio break colors when the buttons do. And whether it's professional or amateur. You set up any alarms, any hotkeys, supports APRS, GPS. Most of the radios that are not on a defined network, you can do roaming. The only ones so far that I've found that work as designed for Motorola radios is the repeaters from Motorola. And you get the 2-second hang message from the Motorola repeaters. Hot groups, you can have a whole about. Well, in DMR, they separate, in Anytone, they separate hot groups, contact lists. So here they've got contact list hot groups, and here they have digital contacts. This is where your personnel DMR ID folks are. All Anytone radios support 500,000 contacts. If you want that. And now 10,000 possible talk groups. So they can be huge. Every talk group is a channel. Every talk group on a different repeater is a channel. So if you have a lot of radio repeaters around here, you want to try different things on different ones, you can have a huge configuration. Like with any other programming, what's the first thing you always want to do? Save up. Scan lists. You define a scan list however you want. And once you have the channels built, it's just a drag into the scan list. You've already built the scan list. So you've already identified the scan list on your channel. Now you go through this, you just drag them over and pop it. And channels are pretty simple. Under the channel pull down, just like every other repeater. Same transmit frequency, analog or digital, power, bandwidth. Analogs can be 12.5, 25 kilohertz. Digitals can only be 12.5. Are you using tones on your analog channels? What's the channel name? Does not like duplicate channel names. And it will tell you what's your content, which is your DMR ID ticker. Analog channels, on Anytone, here's the name. And this is true with all of the DMR radios. When you start a channel, you give it a name, You give it its transmit and receive frequencies, and if you tell whether it's analog or digital, what transmit power, what bandwidth. Do you set it for busy lockout? If it's an analog channel and someone's talking, so you don't rudely interrupt them? Not to be under PH. Oops. That's it. The scan list. Then this portion over here, so digital. You can put in transmit prohibit, like if you put in weather channel, sure one, transmit on weather channel. So you click transmit prohibit. Yeah. Work alone. If you set up work alone, it's going to want you to push a button every so often. If you don't push the button, it's going to send out an alarm tone over some frequency you define. So I suggest don't do that. Then down here, it's with VL sounds, either VL or DCS, for encode and decode. If you're doing any 2-zone or 5-zone decoding, you set that up over here. Very simple. The only thing that's different amongst different DMR radios is what this picture looks like. Still have to put all that stuff in. Digital channels, same thing. Here's the name. Transmit receive frequency. We now on digital. High power 12.5K. Under transmit permanence, the only time it should ever be set to always is for simplex operation. If you set it for always during repeater operation, you're being rude because you key the radio and if you key up. So you put on any tone recommends that say different color code. Not all DMR radios have different color code. It either says color code or always, in which case you would just use color code. And your scan list, same place it was. Only now you configure the digital part. The contact is your talker. Whatever talker you want to get it. Radio ID is the one you configure with your DMR ID. Color code 0 through 15, slot 1 or 2. Receiver list, and then encryption. We know amateur radio doesn't use encryption, but there should never be anything in the encryption side. Everybody good with channels? So this is your file cabinet. This is where you take zone names, whatever they are. Nothing standard. It's whatever you want to call it. They're just a file cabinet or a notebook. Right? All they do is contain your channels. Just like we did for scan lists, it shows all of the channels. And you just drag them over with them in the talker. So how do you organize them? Personal preference. I organize them by club or by like ham 447. I'll have all the analog 447 repeaters in. Simplex UHF, everything's in there. Or Simplex VHF. Or Simplex DMR. The names, the zones are yours. Of course, unless you use somebody else's book. Contact list. This is the list of people by DMR ID, by name. Do you want to be alerted when they call you? You know, Paul and Scott over here have an alert for Dan's DMR ID. So when the president of the club calls, the line goes off. City, state, country, bang. Like I said, any tone radios support 500,000 contacts. Don't suggest you put them all in. You pick the side. You want Colorado? You want USA? You want Douglas Elbert County? You pick what you would end with. They're capable of a 500,000 ton. Motorola is capable of 1,000. So, difference is Motorola is commercial business radio. You're not going to have a 500,000 contacts on business. Okay, just got your radio. Oh boy, I'm so excited. What you do? Unpack, charge the battery, download, install a driver. So, Windows will screw with your driver solution on it. Install the CPS, whatever CPS you're using. If you would like to use RT systems, load it. If you like to use the manufacturer's CPS, it's free. It's free on any of the DMR radios, including the one you want to talk about over here. False. That's the one. Connect your USB cable, connect the other end of the radio, computer, turn it on, and wait for it to move. Watch the CPS. Set the serial port. Everybody knows how to check their serial port with Device Manager. Take and read the radio and save the version code book, because that's your bailout. If you inadvertently make a mistake, at least you didn't go back to that you know was to at one time. Create a new code plug, including the blank. Install that. Suggest you also record or modify the radio mode. Any tone radios have up to 18 modes. Mode 0 is commercial wide open. Mode 7 is USA amateur. Mode 14 on the few radios, 878, 578, enables 220. But this is important because the mode is part of the code book. So if Paul calls me and says, hey, can I get a code plug from you? And I give him a code plug, he loads it as any tone radio. It might say mode conflict. And he'll sit there and scratch and say, what the hell is it talking about? Mode conflict. Well, that's because I have my mode set for one thing. When I save the configuration, he has his radio set for some other mode. Maybe he's playing at the 220. You already got your DMR ID, hopefully. Load your code plug. That's the way does it work. It's always got 2 plus 4 channels, default in it. Change it, add one. Got your COM port. Mine always comes up at 7. Of course, the new one that I got comes up at 9. If you don't set the COM port and you try to talk to the radio, guess what happens? You get an error. Say the original code blood reads from radio. Do the steps, we'll read it and complete. Give it a name. Give it a name that you understand what it is in 6 months or 2 years, whatever from now. Identify it as a blank code plug. A good place to go back to. Locate the code plug you like. Get it from a club. File share. Get it from a friend. File share. Beware of errors. So, beware of errors. Beware of what else? Modes, right? May not match, will not load. It doesn't match. But we can fix that. We can fix that. Firmware and CPS must be the same vintage. If you have a new radio that has 1.07 in it, and your old radio had 1.00, it won't load. Firmware mismatch. So you have to play around then with rolling back your CPS and loading the configuration. There are some third-party tools that I've found that only run on Linux that will work on the good log that run on Windows. I like this one. Write your own. It's a good learning experience. Actually, it's a great learning experience because if it doesn't work, now you know what to look for because you built. You know where you went. New links. Not that we ever do that. But it's happened more times than not. I like doing this. I like you folks to build at least a 10-channel code book with a couple of zones. If you get that, then you get that done and it works just fine. Then you can get somebody else's code plug and load it. And if it doesn't work, you have an idea where to look because it'll tell you. Talk through mismatch, something mismatch, no, modes are wrong, firmware is wrong. Make sure wherever you get your code plug, you build it, or you get it from a repository someplace, put your DMR ID on it. So I don't see somebody calling me DMR ID of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is that? It's some default code plug. Save your code plug. Save it, flash it into the radio. And then what? Once you put it in the radio, then what? Test it, absolutely. Remember, assume nothing. We are all hackers. We like to experiment. We'll assume nothing. You have any tone in the folder location, there's a DMR ID list. It holds, I don't know, 30 or so DMR IDs. Typically, you can only have 1 or 2. But it holds 32 of them. But Dan would be a perfect case for this. He's surprising we asked him. And if he set up with his company a DMR system, he could put his corporate or his company's DMR ID for him when he's operating on those channels and have his amateur ID for when he's operating on amateur radio and I'll make sure I want ready. Not every radio will do that. Most only has one DMR ID. Low Jim code for our great. Thing as we did before. Write it out. Write complete knowledge. Should be ready to go. Now test your analog channel. Maybe the radio channel on a gear. There's tons of analog repeaters around. You can always call a PRA repeater. One of us is always on, or a shape on. There's not. Set the digital channels by going to the last heard in Grandmaster. It's supposed to be radios will be back into Grandmaster. Check there, last heard. Or call somebody. No, that's what we're into, right? Talking with people someplace. Pop into PRA local. What's the talk room for PRA local? 310844, correct? Now, code plug, and still, it's ready to go. So let's build a new code. First thing, enter your DMR ID, enter your talk groups, private calls are optional. Those will come with the contact database. And parent connection to test your audio is a private ID. When you set up parent, it has to be set to private, not group. So then you can go to Grandmeister repeater, like PRA's repeater, and then your call sign, say whatever, investing in new radio on the parent talk group. When you let go, it will play it back to you. What's the preview and then repeat. Set up your receivers. I suggest I don't care what the radio is, set them up. Scan lists, create the channels, populate the zones, then populate the scan list if you're going to scan. Scanning digital channels is like watching grass grow. I suggest you don't do it. Scanning analog channels is fine. Scanning digital channels, you will regret. Hey. Pick the buttons, in the screens, in the functions. Remember to say, save periodically. As we all know, power goes out once in a while. Or Windows decides to take a walk while you're in the middle of something. Save periodically. In fact, it's there.
On the receiver, I was going to delay cold flooding. I didn't have receivers. I don't know what those
The talk group, or talk group name actually.
awkward game.
Right. So if we set up a talk group, in the talk group list that we had 310844 PRA local. Yeah. When you go to receive groups, you will see PRA local as something that you can put in. So you just click that and move it over.
Right.
You can add more than one talk group in a receive group, but you will receive any talk group in the receive. Right? So if you're expecting a call and you're like me, didn't have the radio sitting up on the shelf and they call me in 028, what the hell channel was that on? Because I have multiple talk groups in my receive group. So a lot of folks like to do, well, I was telling Paul, the AC5S and 028 on PRA local. genetic scanning or not paying attention, I just told him where it was. Kind of like the same way law enforcement stuff does when they do jam. They'll call 2 cards on 5. Thought groups are the rooms or the organizations or the groups that you're talking. Three flavors we talked about: private calls, which is your individual DMR ID. Generally not permitted. Rocky Mountain Hams, big digital system, does not permit private calls except on the east farm route. They get and they kept group calls, stock groups, users. What else can be a group call? We know 310844 is a group call because it's PRA local. Your DMR ID can be a group call. So if Paul and I wanted to get together and do something, one of us would create a group call with our DMR ID and call, and then we're going to be violating the private ID. And anybody else would come on there and talk with us if they can find us. That, right? If it's private, you can't get there except for issues. If you need a group call, anybody that figures out that using my DMR ID or Paul's DMR ID can jump right in top. And then I'll call. There are some parts of the U.S. that will get very irate at you if you use all call. Probably enough said about that. Here in Colorado, we use all call as a simplex channel. In some cases, Barney Ham does. So, here's your talk group ID. You want an alert when I get the ID. This was 310844. You want to tell them to go off when I get a call from them. That would help if I was scanned or if I was have multiple talk group IDs. If I had 310844 with an alert tone, and I had 3 talk groups configured in my receiver, if I got the tone and somebody called me, I would know right where it came from. Very simple to set up. You give it a name, whatever name you want it to be. Hopefully, it means something to you. Group call is also where you set up private call and call call. The DMR ID, whether or not you're using another. And it's in the single folder list. Right call radio ID. Hit the edit notes.
Now, quick question, Jim. So the name is just specific to you. If you and I want to have a conversation, what I name it, what you name plays no role in us having that conversation. Great. And then the last is on the call alert. Is there more than one you can get?
It goes down the James.
Okay.
Got it. It's one of the make it pretty sections.
Got it.
And everybody okay with that? Good. Open the talk group. Double click on it. This is a different radio. It says contact and talk groups. This is a different DMR radio. different anytone radio, which I was just talking. These arrangements are only in anytone. These specific things are in every DMR radio. Well, in a lot of them, digital contact list and talk rooms are the same answer. So when you look at it, you'll see where you on 0844 in the middle of a bunch of people. Good. Then you kind of go. Pretty simple to build, and then you get a whole list. And the list, when you get to a channel, you populate the talk group. Other IDs. This is people. All people. This is their DMR ID. Their name, same as you saw before, where they are, set up for private call. If you do that on your hotspot, it doesn't matter. You can do it on your hotspot all day long. You're not affecting a repeater. But you can do it all day long, not hotspot. You see a group list. You call it, the name is whatever you want to call it. Whatever it makes sense to you. You put what the contacts are. Get it to that name. Whether it's 1, 2, 3, what you want to receive. You see it's down on the visual sheet. Put in both angles. It's up here at the top. You see the hookups. Adding channels. One at a time. North Carolina on wireless time. In beside the channels you want. What you want to talk groups on, what repeaters you want to talk to. You just want to talk to PRA. You want to talk to Denver Radio Club or Rocky Mountain Radio League. They all have DMR repeaters. The gotcha is when you want to talk to R&M. They all have repeaters, like 40 some of them. And there are specific properties that you must use. They are not connected any longer in Grandmeister. They used to be. They used to have 4 cocktails on Grandmeister. So that anybody in the state could get a hold of them because they're part of state USA. When they elected to take out the Grandmeister interface, which now makes that not as good as it used to. I'm sure they had problems with it. You build scan lists, analog only. Scanning digitally, it's painful. Very painful. Except maybe your hotspot. Your hotspot is probably be all right because it doesn't have the speed drives. And now we do channels. Because these things have to be defined before you build a channel, digital channel. Guys keep taking pictures. This, I believe, is going to be posted up on the files website on PRA. So it'll be downloaded. They can convert the PDFs or whatever. It'll be easy. And I built this so that you could follow. Scan list, same as before. Enter the scan list name and you drag the channel. And then it populates up here how many channels. You set the priority channels for the scan list. So something south on there, priority channel or just an ordinary channel? Once you have populated, gives all your names. These names are something that you come up with. I mean, I have them so I understand what they're for, but other people may not know what Barnham Central means. Maybe it means something else to you. Sure. Some of us know what it means. I'm like this, ham 447, 447, alloy repeaters, 448 repeaters, 449 repeaters. Like, look like that when you're done. Usually tied between scans, how long it lasts. You can configure all of this. I would start with it in the default mode. Digital channels, we talked about digital channel creation. You go to the channel indicator folder, pops up with this. This could be an analog or digital channel, as we saw. We define the name, the frequency, it's digital or analog, hot permit, high power, low power, medium power, turbo power, if it's at any time. Scan list if you have any. In the area here for simplex, that there's more slides on we need to talk about. This right here is a confusing area. And digital channel you configure over here. Analog channel you configure over here. You need to say a thing about this, that DMR mode, whether you have it in repeater, will be about good lights. It works the same. Like, I try to keep it in line to do simplex channels with DMO simplex and repeater channels with repeater, because it's got to be a reason. And there's some other things in there to bring it in line with the send. Well, pretty simple with what you define for your digital channel. And simplex, analog simplex is easy. It's defined by CCARC on their standard list. So the last time I called CCARC about, what about DMR simplex? I'll just use anything that's not for me. Okay, all right. I like that. So there looks up for Top Group 99 was defined by DMR Park, which goes Motorola Radio Club, way back when they were founded. So Top Group 99 is default for simplex. But what about 310844? Could that be simplex? Would that be a simplex channel? Absolutely, yeah. And we'll see that. I like to build things with a purpose. Hot group all call is used in simplex. It's very controversial. You know, they're parts of the 310844, the PRA local hot group. I have it configured for simplex. Then look, when I get to that stuff, we'll talk about it. DMR Mark also defined these frequencies as DMR simplex in North America. The issue with that is 446,500, 443, 450 are coordinated frequencies by CCARC. So technically, we should not use them. The ones in red. 146.52 and 44600 are also non-coordinated frequencies. Should we use those for DMR simplex? No, because of the national calling check. So CCARC's help us very much. They have advised the amateurs should use any simplex frequency that has not been recorded. Here's the analog simplex channel defined by CCARC, and none of them are coordinated. So in theory, any one of those channels could be used for DMR signal, including 44600, 465. I suggest don't. That really screws up soda and protocols. That yeah, we get angry. Does simplex. Just straight on theta, which is a non-coordinated frequency. Default for simplex is color code 1, time slot 1, tone group 99. The admin criteria, the transmit criteria is always, but you're only going to be talking to your group. You're not going to be effective repeat. DMR mode, here, or DMR simplex, both work. I like simplex for a purpose. So, for PRA members, like when they're down doing food drives, when they're out at field it, when they're just out messing around. Simplex frequency 441.0, okay, code 1 times not 1, talk group 318. 310.844. Nothing wrong with fleet. What else could you put in this talk room? The simplex operation. How about your DMR ID? So that you're just talking with your group, but you have family that's amateur operators. We did one of those. You just talk about yourself. This one should work good at date. You're going to need simplex. Okay, here we go. This is to be part of any tone configuration or DMR mode is DMO simplex, repeater, DCDM double slot, and at any tone special, DCDM time slot split. So DMO simplex technically should be used for the simplex channels. But in testing, I've created both kinds of channels with both kinds of entries. They more fun because you find the frequency. But I still like simplex to use DMO simplex. And for repeaters, repeated. But either one will work for repeater configuration or for a simplex configuration. Now, DCDM double slot is defined by the standard. Standard DMR simplex. The time slots are ignored. Has to be configured, but they are ignored. If you configure DMO simplex or either as the simplex channel, you will receive them on time slot 1 and time slot 2. If you configure DCDM yeah, DCDM double slot. Then the radio that you're working with becomes the synchronizing source and will divide into 2 time slots. You transmit on time slot 1, you will receive on time slot. Transmit on time slot 2, you will receive on time slot 2. There's no cross communication. All of the radios have some form of bat. You figure Motorola XPR 7550 has a checkbox right here. Wolfgang DM 32UV, it's TDMA direct bump. So, I'd help you figure out what your radio has if it's not one of these 3 that but they are there. They are in the 1701 and the 1801, both things. They are the TYT. There's a little checkbox. Any tone seems to be the old find it. Like the mess with your head and you get more things to think about. DCDM time slot split. You transmit on time slot 1, you receive on time slot 2. And if you transmit on time slot 2, you see on time slot 1. I don't know why it's there. It is not part of the standard. It is not part of the scene. It's something that I found in Anytone when I was playing with it. What is this? So for that to work, the other radio would have to also be correct. So, in my opinion, or whatever it's worth, I don't just configure the emotion. Unless you have a reason that goes actual to the slots, then simplex. When you're in repeater mode, talking to a repeater is synchronizing the radio to get the 30 millisecond spacing between the time slots with the handshake. That's the handshake from the repeater. When you're talking simplex, you don't have that handshake. So you'll be talking of both time slots. That's that improvement with several different radios. But it's a gotcha. And the dissemination was found in a pi star node. Like with pi star. Yeah. Digital simplex channels, like I said. Figure for 99. Frequency, DMO simplex. So I'm talking both time slots. Here, PRA simplex. Frequency, digital, always transmit. DMO simplex. PRA local. That's a doctor. Thanks for PRA folks getting together someplace. Here's final look at what they should look like. The simplex mode. Transmit. Off up. I like Mark Pine, so I know. Simplex digital. Talker. Channel. We've already seen you can figure this one or CPCS out or PCS. You can figure air for a repeater or simplex. Otherwise, it's configuring the same. It's really as easy as configuring an analog radio with a few more debates. Well, here we have the name, the frequency, receive and transmit, analog channel, power high for HTs. The bandwidth on analog can be either 12.5 or 25 kilohertz. We do have some 12.5 repeaters in Colorado, in the Denver metro area. define analyst, define CSS, the simplex channels, hotspots. CCARC even created hotspot channels. So these are non-coordinated channels. So what else would they be used for? Simplex operation. Then they define if you have a duplex hotspot or simplex hotspot. Simplex use the output, for duplex use input and the output. Or transmittal power typically, in your transit admin is always, because the only person that you're arguing with is yourself. That's full bit. Unless you're broadcasting your hotspot to everybody in the world. And simplex time slots or simplex hotspots, time slot 2. Always time slot 2. We kind of configure time slot 1 is on a duplex hotspot. There are 2 versions of hotspot. There's one Raspberry Pi that's made by, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 different vendors. Zoom Spot at PRA, Bridgecom has one, PGRF has one, Michael and Malachi. There's another one, OpenSpot. OpenSpot 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 Pro, and then the M1KE by Shark Barrett in yes. That is the only hotspot, a hot OpenSpot 4 Pro that has translation for E-Star other modes. On the ones with Raspberry Pi, DMR can translate to YSF, YSF to DMR, DMR to NXDN, and NXDN with DMR. It can pass through D-Star to D-Star HT, or a YSF HT, or N25. Used to do M17, but they took that out. The OpenSpot 4, roughly $350. iStar, you build it yourself, which I know Paul has done a overnight build here, $100. You demand a part sheet. Hotspot creation, it's a simplex channel. A transmit CNC, unless it's a duplex hotspot. Then you have 5 link separation. Of course, 600 kHz separation if you're using VHF. Generally low power, time slot 2, or a simplex hotspot. Both time slots, if it's a duplex hotspot, but it's configured just like a simplex channel with whatever you're talking. And I haven't had any trouble with not having receive groups configured for hotspot. And there's 2 flavors of software for the Raspberry Pi. There's iStar, which was the original from way back then. And there's WPSD, written by I have it in Wisconsin or Minnesota, W0CHP. I think it's much better. It's much more graphical and intensive, though. So if you built hotspot or got a hotspot that has an I0, it's going to be working really hard to be. Hotspot creation is just like any other channel. The only difference with mine, all low power, because it's staying on the table over here, boards and people over there on basement here upstairs. No sense in putting out 5 watts. The dock that close. Still has the channel lanes and it still has the top groups. Only with the hotspot, you can do more private conversation without people getting upset with you for tying up their repeater signal conversation. Zone creation, we've talked about that. Any tone supports 250 channels per zone. Motorola's 160 channels per zone. EYT MD380 is 16 channels per zone. The Ailerons HD1 and 2 are 64 channels. The Wolfgang DM32 is 64 channels per zone. How many channels is on the PD? I have an MD380 with 16 channels and it works. Living at the 16 channel. So if you have 4, then it's hotspot 1 and hotspot 2. Or so it can be whatever you want. Clubs, repeaters, hotspots, analog propane. The zone definition, the zone name is up to you. Something that makes sense to you. Nothing happens in a DMR radio without a channel being assigned to a zone. So you can create 4,000 channels. Write it to your radio and be all proud and happy and smiling, and on your 6th or 7th pair and go over and turn the radio on, and there'll be nothing there. If you did put them in a zone, they must be in a zone to function. Except for the Ailerons HC1 and 2. Every tag, every channel you build, it puts it in an all-channel zone. The only one I've ever seen this done that. So when you look at the zones that you've done that, you see all channel. What is that? Oh, it's every channel I configured. Not really good for organization. But at least you don't turn it on and go, what the heck? Why don't I see it? Whereas all these other radios, if you don't put them in a zone, nothing happens. Zones are easy. You got all your channels, put your zone up here, and you drag ones associated with that zone. Don't have to type it, just drag it up. If you screw up, drag it back. Because it will default and put things in this side, every place that you're allowed to drag and drop, so that it has at least a dimension. And it's probably not going to enter 80 watts. So once you enter, you drag the other one back. And you can sort them up and down from the order you want, sort by ID, sort by name, if it matters. Once you're done, what you end up like, how we're picking zones, how many channels are in each zone, what my primary channel is on the main channel, what my primary channel is on the sub channel, which are all configured for zone. You rate it? Okay, I did. Optional settings. In some of the versions of any type, 868, 578 version 1, 878 version 1, optional settings are not saved when you do a relational database export. They are saved when you save your type, save your code file. But See in a little bit, method of exporting all of the relational databases to CSV files. Except in some of the earlier ones, not optional setting. So if you already have an ATOM of a normal version of 868 or a 878 version 1 or 578 version 1, my recommendation is to screenshot each tab when you're done with it and proving, because it sets things up like work mode, if you're going to need work mode, image actually key functions, buttons on the side, great digital function, missions. What happens at power? Where do you see? Where do you go? What does your display look like? What kind of three colors? Volume and audio in alert tones. Want your AD tone to sound like a Motorola? Give you the tone. So work mode tells you the zones, whether you're in BFO, memory, what zone you're in, when you come up, main channel, sub channel on or off. You can turn your sub channel off if you don't want to see two things on. Key functions, when the side keys do short press, long press, not locks, keyboard locks are all configured. Digital functions, here's promiscuous mode. Digital monitor on and off is promiscuous mode. Digital monitor color code you want to listen to. What IE want to listen to. Mine's configured for any. Full time before we're done scanning. All right. What would you like to say at the beginning? Or do you have a picture you want to put up? Like the PRA logo, the ARL logo, or you just want to put the Meditone, that you want to put your call sign in your name. Whatever, that's configured to this. If you have a configuration password, turn it on, turn it off, and put it here. If you put in a password, I suggest you write it down. Probably on the back of the radio. So tomorrow when you get over there, the back is the password. You go down about now. Like every other Windows password, write it down somewhere. Default startup on PRA. You have it on, or you have it off. Work mode. And if this are the same thing, you configure one, you configure both. This one takes precedence. If this one is off, it looks at work mode. What zone you're in. This tells you the zones and the channel. You can start up in VFO mode if you want. Display. What the pretty colors? What pretty colors do I want to see? How bright do I want? Or the backlight? Or do I want the menu to time out after a certain amount of time? This is all to make it a pretty thing. We've already got working rating. Now I get to do this. What do you call sign colors from the call in the database that you load? Volume, max volume, headset volume, mic gauge, whether you're using enhanced audio or not. Me, I would set the mic gauge, the gains, that I can turn down the volume to the volume in the headset. With volume account rate. Mic gain usually about 3 to 6. And notoriously loud. alert tone. Up, down, and configure like a motor road. Configure by anything you want to configure it. Reset tones, idle channel tones, SMS alert if you get a text, which some folks don't like on their repeaters either, is text messages. Permit, you may either talk permit tone on digital or analog or both. Write the configuration. First pass, other data. First pass, don't do the contact list. It'll be there. You might as well go at once if it's a big contact. That's the radio before you load it. Addition of the contact list. As of 1st of March, there was 303,000 contacts in the database. Fits well in the 500,000 contact period. You have to decide what you want to load. You have to decide how long you want to sit there and watch it. You load them all, you load USA. 1st of March was almost 130,000. But Colorado was almost 22.8. Instead at first, I'm sure it's going to break a little nut. And you'll get the persons that's calling you DMR ID on the street. All you will get without the database being loaded. These are some locations of getting any tone-based contacts. I get the contacts for North America, and then I bring them into Excel, and I sort that for what I want to load. Typically, it's Colorado. You can sort them. You already got the spreadsheet layout that any tone wants. Sort them on what you want. Save them as a CSV file, and bring them into the system. Bringing them into the system from this CPS, there is a tool header. From the tool header, there'll be selections, import, export, firmware, these things where you can import part of the relational database or all of the relational database, and it will then bring in. There's a lot of things in tools that are their friends that are not in other manufacturers' radio CPS. So here's the import from the tools menu. If I was just importing contacts, I would point here to digital contact list and go to my CSV file and then push import. And it will bring it into the configuration that you currently have loaded. And the amount of time it will take depends on the number of people. You have up to 500,000. So this is also where you can import a complete configuration. So if you start out with a 868 UV HT and you build the configuration, you have it just perfect. If you export, this is the import type. If you export from the top, it will export every one of these relational databases in CSV format. We'll see your over and put them in a file or directory of your choosing, which I put under any tone, whatever the radio is, ESC. And then I can find it. Then if tomorrow you go down to HRO and buy a 587 Mobile, my configuration is built. I can't take the code club for the 868 UV and load it into 578 UV. I can take all the CSV files and suck it into the 578 CPS and build my code club in under 5 minutes. So, whenever you load, we'll do this. This, you don't have the pop-up in here 30, and it will load, no anything there. You can see the name is in here. Then save the configuration. And then second pass, when you do a write to the radio, click just the contactables. Then it will take the configuration that you already loaded and that you have in your CPS, because that's where you brought the contacts. And it'll write the contacts to the radio. And then as you get a call from whoever, it will show call sign and the name and the location of who that person is. You don't have to figure out what the heck is this DMR ID. DMR ID thing, 0 cents. And you can tell we're getting close to the end. Rocky Mountain County is a huge DMR system in Colorado. It covers all of Colorado, Front Range, East Burlington, west to Grand Junction, north to Cheyenne, south to Albuquerque. They have specifically on their website no private calling on any RN texting, except on talk 705, which is E. And they are adamant about that. We've had a stretching one. Oops, sorry. Every DMR radio owner, operator knows who's on their system. So these guys will all be the list of who's with the DMR radio. RM Ham, you can see bridges and repeaters. They get a list of who's on the radio. They get a list of who set the wrong talk because your DMR ID is. There is no Grandmeister connectivity any longer. Yeah. They took it out. They ruined the statewide fences. So here's a layout of the RM Ham system in Colorado. They use 700, 720, 710, 11, 16, 22, 23, 705, 719, and 721. And if you configure one of the repeaters in the Colorado, Denver metro area, you talk group 700, you will bring up every one of these repeaters from Cheyenne to Albuquerque, including Durango, Farmington, Four Corners. It is what? It's meant for emergency communications in the state. My issue with it is up here where there's skiing, hiking, mountain biking, and hunting, there's no coverage. Down here, there's no coverage. Now, in their defense, all of this equipment is theirs, I think 1 or 2 repeaters. They funded the whole project. All of these repeaters are interconnected via amateur radio microwave on 5 meter. There is no all-star link that you have to go through. There's no ISP you have to go through. It's built in a similar fashion to the state communication system. Microwave between all sites. So they have microwave all the down the front range and all on the west, all the way down. If you're in Grand Junction and you call up Packard 720, you will get all of the blue indicators, repeaters hovering up. So that's typically all along I-7. If you look at the purple ones, those are local repeater only. So there's a Fort Collins one, there's one in Boulder, there's one on Lookout Mountain, there's one at Devil's Head. That's the only repeater that comes up. Time saw one on those repeaters, Rocky Mountain wide. Time saw two is low. Oriented east. Most all of the east repeaters are VHF. There is one at Boulder that's in UHF. All of the rest of them are VHF. DMR repeater. In Doctor 705. 719 are all the red ones in the south. So if you're down here at Pueblo, and you call it the Pueblo repeater, on time slot 2, you're going to pick up all of the repeaters in the south, plus all the ones in New Mexico. It's south. The job. And the yellow ones are going. When you come in up here from Nebraska, you get this one, and you bring up all of these two. Everything centralizes out of Denver. The only unique repeater, there's one out here in Genoa. Time slot 1 is north, time slot 2 is south. Because radio folks out there wanted that, so they provided the repeater. It's a very nice system. I'd like to see them move up in here. They give something. But I think the pretty much instead of $10,000, send them a repeater to do that. By the time you get the microwave, the lakes and radio, the antenna, and the flexor, everything, they have an estimate around $8,000 to $10,000 per site. So all these sites, except that one in my north, was funded by that from donation. Questions about this? This is a closed system. Can't get to it from randoms. Have to go to the repeater. You have to use their talk. Question about it is a great MCOP system. I just wish it could go. Guide up, anybody heard? I have link. A couple of guys, one's a broadcast engineer, and one that just several years ago graduated from University of New Mexico or those. They built the system using little lightly used repeaters so that they could get more talk. Anybody's listened to repeaters around the Denver metro area, you take a map. They have Fusion, WiresX, DMR, and All-Star. Scattered around. This is their layout in Colorado. You notice they were listening language. They've got 2 repeaters here and 2 repeaters in Greg. Coming up there. But it's bigger than this. It goes to different shapes. And I believe, last I looked, it may even go to a different color. It's just about time. On this network, at 1,300 hours, Monday to Friday generally, there is a weather observation that comes on using the SkyUp system plus 31083. And they talk about the weather around the state. It's run by NC2WX out of Pueblo. And he brings up every years and they talk about weather outlook for the state. He selected all 5 weather services. Well, Cleveland, Sweden, Denver, many others. He's got radar on there. I'm surprised he still say I said, yeah, because as soon as the weather turns gray, he's on the air till the crappy weather is gone. And as it moves, he switches over to 31083 and it brings in SkyUp repeaters in the area that the storm is at so that people know what's going on. And the spotting sets that are out there know what's going on. Plus anybody that's in the area. Really nice system. Mostly all-star base, except they are piggyback on some of their sites. I think these are piggyback on RNDM. I put it best. RNDM is pretty good with amateurs. They're on Colorado Connection, very familiar with Colorado Connections, link repeaters. So they used to use UHF radio. That's all about RNDM microwave. Or the Colorado Radio Club, amateur radio club, used them for babbling. I used it for some of their repeaters. Most of them are also rent. So if you look at liability, RNDM versus SkyUp, which do you think is better? Liability. Not necessarily called, it's just liability. I make that. Yes. Because it doesn't connect to the outside world. All private microwave doesn't rely on ISVA, ECD, and a connection from those phones to get the review. Repeater book is your friend. This is one of the repeaters I was telling you about where 310847 is the SkyUp. That it is on time slot 2, which best practice is one should be on Skype on time slot 2. Local, right? Now, time slot 1 has all Grandmeister taught groups. It has TGIF. It has DMR Plus. Also, you decide which one you're talking to based on the talk group. Call a repeater. 8 plus 4 digits gets you on a DMR Plus. 4 plus 6 digits gets you on TGIF. And just the talking by itself gets you on Grandmeister. And so here's just a few of the DMR only repeaters. You can see there's a few VHF, like 6 or 8 or so. All the rest are UHF. And as you call each one up, if there's something special about them, it will be listed in the notes. So it becomes your friend if you're building a huge configuration or more than just PRA. Has anybody seen S0 GSG's contact manager? It's DMR specific. It will take any of these radios, Connect Systems Group, EYT Group, Anytone, Terra, which is the PowerWorks, right? VTech, and any other radio that uses RDT, RDB, EPM formats in a relational database, and make a new code block for you by clicking a couple of buttons. So if you wanted to make an Anytone code plot for a 578, you can go to the 578 CPS, build a new code plot, give it a name, nothing in it, save it, bring it in over here to open the code plot file. Down. So structure import. You structure import, and it blanks everything in the code plot you're using into the 578 configuration. And it errors out if it finds an error with something that you're doing. And so in under 10 minutes, I can build a code plot for any one of these, any one of those. Wait a anything, so about 2.8 place. It's another US hand that got created. You know, we talk about doing all the creation of things, you know, mostly it's European folks or Australian folks. Like, you can run out of crickets. But WCRO CHP and N0 GSG are both US amateurs that decided to do some work. And you got very handy. It's doesn't really load. It's just a file that runs. So if you're doing anything with DMR and any of those radios, this is nice because this will also bring in the contact list or the radio configuration that you have and format it properly. And it's straight, which is in the US, that's unheard of. Anytone tools. So some of the things we talked about earlier under tools. Here's the import export, which I use a lot. And here's our check mode. Here's firmware to load firmware. And icon updates. Put your images in, your boot image or your running image. Down here, it will export data conversion file. This is the file in N0 GSG Contact Manager uses to suck all the information. If I do an export and I push export here at the top, works and export all, it will prompt me for the directory and the file. And then it will take all of these relational databases, now including optional settings, and we'll write it to an individual CSV file for every one of those databases. So if you're good at manipulating databases, you want to add channels, you want to do something, it's CSV and app, put effect. Want to go back in. One of the things Anytone won't tell very loud, but has been in several modifications and fixes documents that they sent to Paul is giving you updates terminator. Or you change the CPS. They suggest that you rebuild the code. So, probably everybody here standing up on the back of their neck and all on groups. If you export all relational databases and you update everything, you come back and you do an import here, same layout. Click import. It asks you for the location and the file name. So when you save, which I typically save as the date that I did it, you click on that and you press import instead of export, and it just builds you a or if it's a different FS7, the new Tonic 90, which doesn't have an XCN, and you're building a code like you've got a 868, export all of the database, call up the CPS or the 890, go to tools, and import the database, and you've just built your code book. Now, it might not be perfect because the 890 has satellite exception on it, so it tracks the satellites. So it will, well, that you would have to do, but the majority of the code plug is built for you. That's true with any of the A-town device. Questions about any of that? Wait. No, I'd rather sync up, so if I code plug conflict. We talked about doing modes, and we talked about mode in the radio has to match the mode in the CBS. The only radio that I know of that is so picky. Every other radio has loads and unloads and does all kinds of stuff. This one is fixed. And so it's got up to 18. Here's this, the 878 version 2. It's got 17 different modes. So they click it seems lately the new radios, at Encode Radio, are coming out commercial in Europe mode 0, which right here 400 to 480, 136 to 174. So it's a wide open radio. You want to change it? Change it. Mode 7 over here is amateur radio, 400 to 480 receive, 420 to 450 transmit, 144 line 488 transmit. Let's do with amateur. Change. I would find it 0. If you're really interested, if you do 14, it gives you wide open transmits on VHF and UHF, and it gets you to truck. That's on the 878 and on the 578. It is not on the 168 or the 860. If you make a mistake, which none of us ever do, or you get a configuration from somebody to say, oh, by the way, I use this, and it's not what you want. With the hex editor, you can go into the code plug, and at byte 11 is the mode, and it's in hexadecimal. So if this is 0 echo, what mode is it? Here. left. It is mode 14, 0 ecto, mode 14. And my radio is set for 0. So I just go and make that 0, 0. And close it out, it breaks back to the 2 hertz. And if you're curious, when you get a radio, there's AT options, any tone option that will go into any tone radio via the USB port and ring what the mode is. Tell you the radio. Tell you the password to do this. And it lets you change the mode before you loaded anything in radio. So if I get one of balls for sale things, I don't know what it is. We're going to make what I want. Alternative to that, on the HT, holding down the PTT and the number 1 and turning on the radio, puts the mode live on the screen. And the slider switch will change the mode. Modes must match. The configuration will not load. Anybody never know this? So here's a whole list. VTech radio, 6x2, 6x2 Pro, 7x2. All of the Anytone DMR radios and all of the Alinco radios are all Anytone based and are all capable of changing modes. And here's a list. You get AT options. There is a text list of every mode for every radio. And if there's a password, it lists the password.
Where do you find the
Google AT options.
Oh, idiot. Sorry.
Not a good. Because it's not written by any jump. It's written by G3 stop package.